All righty. Welcome. This week on The Big Show, film critic and CCA board member Shawn Edwards will join us to discuss his 20th anniversary as a critic and share his thoughts on the current state of Hollywood. Our show correspondent, Wilson Morales, will also join us to let us know what's happening in entertainment, and we'll review the new film, which stage play, Hamilton, all on episode 406 of the home edition of Keeping It Real with Film Gordon. Let's go. Okay, and welcome to the latest episode of our show. I'm Tim Gordon. I'm joined by Charles Kirkland.
Hey, what's happening, everyone?
Man, that's nice. That's nice. And also, as you can see on screen with us, Wilson Morales, third week in a row, third different set. This dude keeps us guessing every week, man. We don't know where Wilson. I'm waiting to see him do one where he's going to turn on the camera and he's going to be standing in the subway system talking about, what's up, there's a train behind me?
I'm like that old school reporter, always out in the streets, always out and about. Where in the world is Wilson Morales today?
Wilson, what's up?
Not much, man. As I say, keeping it real, obviously today I am home. I am homebound, It's the 4th of July, and this is one of the strangest 4th of July where you literally are not really planning to go anywhere. You're staying indoors. This pandemic is not going away, as we see. We've been playing a game of who's on first every week, as far as who wants to be the first big release out the gate and take a bloodbath at the box office. Nobody wants to do it. Disney, as you mentioned, is going to be winning today, tomorrow, throughout this weekend with Hamilton. Good move. Now, especially now, early this week, they announced that the theater world will not come back to at least January. So that's over 100,000 jobs in the theater community just like doing nothing. And so Hamilton is a good way to remind people what the theater world is about, music, songs, and why you come outside, stuff like that. So Hamilton's out there. You still have a few films that's trying to make a dent in the theaters somehow. You've got The Outpost, which is directed by Rod Lurie. You also have John Lewis, Good Trouble. Or I forget, is that the right title?
Oh, that's the right title. That's the right title.
Okay, Good Trouble. An extraordinary documentary directed by Don Porter about, it's not a cradle to the grave type of documentary, but, for those who don't know who John Lewis, he's one of the last remaining figures in the Martin Luther King era.
Excuse me. Did you literally just say it's not a cradle to the grave documentary? I've never heard that before. I was like, I guess as he's still alive is not to the grave, but okay, go ahead, man. I'm sorry.
But a friend of mine went to see it last night in the theaters, outdoors, one of those drive-in theaters in LA. And she said there was a crowd there, so it's good to see that.
Of course there's a crowd there, Wilson. There's nothing else happening. There's no protests. There's no concerts like John Lewis doc, sure.
No, but to see people go out to see a documentary, documentaries don't make money, so for people to go out there to see a documentary, at a drive-in, that just tells, hey, people are willing to go out. You are deep in the business that you will go out to see a documentary.
Oh, so I don't count. I don't count. Okay.
You don't know. We don't count.
Really, you don't count because you would go see it anyway. But this is also goes to the point where I say somebody needs to just go out there and open up a movie because people are dying to go see something. I think a movie would be more successful than people think if they put something out in the theaters.
Not really, because when you don't
drive in.
I'm in New York, and when some of these states are saying are not having indoor dining with these restaurants that could hold 50 to 70 people, what makes you think people are going to go to a theater that holds more than 200? If you can't go to a restaurant inside, why would you go to a theater where, at least a restaurant, you can go out for a smoke or whatever, a drink. Once you're in that theater for 2 hours. All it takes is somebody sneezing, coughing, you're like, uh-oh. You're going to start thinking about contagion.
Seriously, man. So, all right, Wilson. So you talked about Broadway being down. I'm just kind of going back. Hamilton, I'm going to review it a little later on. It's absolutely the perfect weekend, which I have newly renamed All Holidays Matters weekend. I need to put that up on my page. Don't look at me like that, Charles, because I get All Lives Matter. I'm like, all right, so all holidays matter. So we had Juneteenth a couple of weeks ago. But question for you, Wilson, and for Charles. I heard or read this morning that the NFL is planning on having the Black National Anthem play before kickoff on game 1 this season. And as a Black man who went to public school system in Newark, New Jersey, and learned the Black National Anthem in the 4th grade, it's just too much, man. I don't need to hear Lift Every Voice and Sing, man, before the national anthem. Like, why? Like, what point does that? So I'm sorry, I started. Wilson, how do you feel about listening to James Weldon's amazing composition before an NFL football game?
I find when you have these political questions,
screen freeze.
When you have these
let me do Wilson again. He was like,
you know what? I'm like, let me not go Terry Crews. and silence is golden.
Too much.
Let's be diplomatic and be like, well, it is what it is.
Charles.
Now, here's the thing. I think everybody wants to prove something for Black Lives Matter, and the NFL wants to do it. Now, if you're just telling me it's just that one game kickoff, I'm like, okay. It's a difference if you're telling me that all of a sudden they're going to replace the national anthem for every game playing that. But if it's just playing it during the first game, and that's the NFL's record.
They're not going to replace it, Wilson. They're going to play it beforehand. But my issue.
For one game or for all games?
I know at least starting week 1, but I don't want to see. And I know this sounds real basic, but the fact of if you've listened to the lyrics or know the lyrics, they speak to a particular experience. That's all I'm saying. It would look really funny to see little Biff singing, on the tears we trod. No, I don't want that. So that's just me. So Charles, my apologies, because Wilson's not going to give me his true feeling.
It all depends on who was in the room. Who was in the room when they decided that, and if there was a person of color that was in the room, does he know the context of the words to say, like, I don't know, we can say that. Like you're saying, like, I don't know if you're gonna have, the whole point of the anthem is that we all know it and we all say it. When you're announcing it, you're basically saying to half the world, to those who watch football, you're just going to be sown silence, and listening to people sing those words, and will it have any effect?
Charles?
Okay, first of all, it's a long song. Hopefully, even one verse is a very long song. And to have a whole segment of the population at this game who have no idea what that song is, and not just white America, but there's some African Americans who have no idea how that song goes. It's going to be kind of isolating to a lot of people. I'm not in favor of it. I mean, I understand where they're going with trying to make this gesture toward the Black Lives Matter movement, but maybe we're going a little too far. Maybe.
Well, I think it's going to get really entertaining in a second, because unlike the reverse of Wilson is Shawn Edwards. Wilson's getting ready to leave in a minute, but this is going to be good.
Oh, yeah. Let's ask Shawn that question.
Yeah. Look at Wilson's face.
Why is he leaving?
Hey, man, hold on a second. Man, get that green screen off, man. You're killing me, Shawn. Really? That's what you do, man.
Well, cause I do it for work, and I gotta. If I take it off, then I'm gonna forget. So I just leave it up.
All right, Shawn, welcome to the show, brother. Wilson, Shawn, 3 of us are one thing. One of us is not. That joke is Charles. No comment.
I'm sorry. What did?
I said there are 4 people on this call, and 3 of us are one thing, and one of us is not.
So what am I supposed to say? What am I supposed?
Why you had to say something? Nobody said anything.
You said Charles. You said
sorry.
Charles.
Shawn, welcome to the show, man. I was trying to bring some levity, but here's the question, man. We were talking about the NFL has announced this morning that they want to play the Black National Anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing. And I vehemently am opposed to that. I just think it's too much, man. I don't want to hear the Black National Anthem at a football game. I think that if you understood the lyrics and the meaning of the song and the power of the song, it is not to be used for entertainment purposes. At least for me, it's not. So Wilson wouldn't give me a straight answer because, he was very diplomatic. Charles said it depends on if they're going to be more than one. Am I quoting you correctly, Charles?
I don't think so, but that's okay.
No, go ahead. What was your thought on that?
I think it's a bad idea because it's isolationist in this case, where there's some people who just don't know what it means and have no it means nothing to them. So I mean, it's just like I guess I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me.
Shawn?
I don't care. I mean, they play the Canadian national anthem and the United States national anthem before the start of hockey games. So why not? It's not isolationism. It's just showing a sign of respect. So if they play it, cool. If they don't, cool. But there's several sporting events where they play, dual national anthem. So why not? Who cares? I don't want to see either one. Really, I just want to see the game. But if they do it.
Well, and I've always had an issue with them playing an anthem before a game anyway. I just don't even understand why that became a tradition. But that was long before all of us were born. So
yeah, it doesn't. It's no harm, no foul either way.
Wow. This whole COVID-19 situation has calmed you down, Shawn. That was not what I expected from you, man.
No, that's not calm. That's my answer. It's no harm, no foul. Like it's either way it works. Or if they do it, they do it. If they don't, they don't. What else can you say? I just disagree that it's isolated. You're not. No.
And I'm gonna let it go. But I hear your point. But I guess what he's saying is that if you listen to the lyrics of the song, it's much different than an anthem, like for a country like say U.S. or Canada versus an anthem.
Star Spangled Banner is not really an anthem for a country either. It's a war charge song.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
a war charge song we've been using since 1812, 1807, something like that.
Yeah. So what does the lyrics have to do with this?
Okay, I'm gonna let it go. So in closing,
it's all symbolism anyway.
No. In closing, Wilson, anything else happening in entertainment that we need to talk about before you get out of here? Because I know you got to run.
Not so much. Everything seems to be slowing now. It's the 4th of July weekend. I'm sure we're going to hear a lot more stuff. Like I said, as we hear these cases rising, everybody seems to be pushing back their timetable of whatever they need to do, whether it's something in production, whether it's obviously theatrical release dates. The goalpost keeps moving. So we just got to go with it.
Well, I gave you my opinion several months ago that the goalpost is probably shut down for the rest of 2020, but I could be wrong. So
no, you're not wrong. This whole conversation has now become idiotic. Like nothing's happening until 2021.
I think Universal was the smartest one when everything started way back when. They said Fast and Furious next year.
Yeah, I mean, without a vaccine, what can you do? You can't play sports because you can't do anything without a vaccine.
Movie theaters can open all they want, but everyone who knows anything about the movie business knows the margins are so thin that exhibitors can't operate with less than capacity crowds. Movies can't make back their box office potential, even losing 5, 10, 15%. Consumer confidence isn't going to rise that quickly. You're not going to have the levels you had pre-pandemic right away. Everybody remembers, or everybody seems to forget, when 9/11 happened, how long did it take people to fly again? I was a frequent flyer at that time. It took a really long time for the airlines to get back to pre-9/11 levels. I'm talking 2 or 3 years. The same thing's going to happen with movie theaters because you're always going to have a certain percentage of people who are just going to be adamant about not going at all, even after a vaccine. You're going to lose some people. It's going to take 2 or 3 years to get back to normal. That's just fact, and that clock doesn't start until after there's a vaccine.
Right. All right, Wilson Morales, sir, thank you as always. I would say enjoy your holiday weekend, but you're going to be doing the same thing all of us are doing, which is basically sitting around doing much of nothing.
We calling each other, say, hey, are you watching Independence Day?
Pretty much.
What do you mean doing nothing, man? Quit being black. Pick up a book. Read. Write.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. When I say doing nothing, I'm saying it in the context, Shawn, of being able to move around and actually go somewhere. I'm reading a book and writing all the time. That's all I can do.
I'm just tired of people all on social media like, there's nothing to do. It's nothing to do. Look, learn, study, read, take a master class. Our idiocy is, the pandemic has exposed one thing. There are a whole lot more stupid people out here.
Yeah.
With that being said, Wilson, take care.
I will see you next week.
All right, man.
All right.
All right. You take care, man. All righty.
Yeah, this is the time people should be planning and strategizing and, not wasting the time. I mean, when else are you going to get this time back? Let's face it, people work from home. No, they're not maxing out 8 hours each day on the clock. Plus, like, if you live in Los Angeles, if you work from home, you've been given at least 2 hours of your life back because you don't have to commute. Like, I mean, you don't have to get dressed. That's another 45 to an hour. I mean, there's so much time that's been handed to a lot of people, man. They need to utilize this time to, do some positive things, plan, strategize, build, man. A lot of people are wasting this time.
All right. So the voice you're hearing, I didn't properly introduce him well, is a good friend of mine. He's a film critic for Fox 4 in Kansas City. I'm proud of him, of all the achievements. One of them that I'm very proud of, and we talked about it at the very top of the show, the CCA. He is a board member of the largest film critics association in the country, only African-American member that's a board member there. Brother, that's a wealth of information, very opinionated, which is what I love most about him, because where Wilson will just cut off, we'll just keep it neutral. Shawn doesn't have a neutrality, a button that's neutral.
What was Wilson keep it neutral?
Man, we asked him about the same question you asked, and Wilson's face froze like his screen froze. He was
what question did you ask about?
About the national anthem.
About the anthem.
They do. Yeah, I mean, that question's not that.
But I'm saying that's Wilson, man. I mean, I'm not knocking Wilson. Wilson's my dude. But, Wilson and I, if I really want to know how Wilson feels, I have to call him and talk to him privately. He will never do it in this format. This is not
actually, you know what they're trying to do with that? They know that the kneeling is very controversial. That is controversial. But let's face it, no matter what side you're on, whether you're pro or anti, the kneeling situation is very controversial. What they're trying to do, they're trying to build a buffer around that. So their solution is to play the Black National Anthem because they're like, hey, I mean, no, I'm just thinking.
But Shawn, what I'm saying is the kneeling is controversial for what reason? I'm a former service person. I served in the Corps.
No.
It's not disrespectful to me.
But but it is to some people. Look, opinions aside, it's a controversial deal. So what the NFL is trying to do, they're trying to create a buffer around it. They're trying to say, well, hey, maybe if we play the Black National Anthem, this is a chance for players to demonstrate. Because I don't think that there will be much controversy if the players kneel during the Black National Anthem. It's the American National Anthem that people seem to have a problem with because the narrative has been twisted and changed. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate on why they decided to do it.
Okay, well.
At least they're being proactive and not doing nothing. It's worse if they do nothing. Because they know that they know that they can't avoid this situation that's upcoming. But I think we're all being a little premature because I don't think there's going to be a season anyway. So
I don't think there's going to be one either. So, I mean, and we also have on the phone two folks who have teams that have nicknames that are Native American. So Dan Snyder, who owns the Washington football team, is under super heat. So now he's reviewing. They're going to change the name. All right, you just figure out what you're going to call it, but it won't be what it was last season or the season.
Why is this so hard? And why is this issue so hard? DC's already changed one franchise name because it had a negative connotation. The Bullets went to the Wizards. So right. I mean, it doesn't change a thing. You know, you still have the old footage of the players in the Bullets uniforms.
The fan base stays the same. The people who rooted for him before still roots for him. It's really, like you said, it's a non sequitur. There should be no problem with changing the name. Moving on. If anything, it would be more progressive. You would get more people to root for your team, more people to support your team if you would go ahead and just make the move and be progressive, be proactive. It's really a non-issue that he's made an issue by being stubborn about it.
Well, yeah, just like
but I was going to ask you, Shawn, are you hearing anything in KC about the Chiefs?
That's not negative.
That's not negative?
It's not.
That's not negative.
Okay, I'm just asking. I mean,
the Chiefs is the equivalent of having a team called the Zulu Warriors.
Or the Kings.
A Native American chief was the leader. That's not a derogatory term.
Okay.
They don't have a caricature as their mascot.
No, right, exactly. They used to, but they don't. They used to, but they don't use it anymore. Like they've been using it since the '70s. Like, no, that's the Cleveland Indians are safe. The Kansas City Chiefs are safe.
The Atlanta Braves, are they safe?
Safe, yeah.
Okay, well, you know, I'm not asking to be funny. I'm saying that since we're in this culture period right now, that I don't know what people are coming for in what cities.
Chiefs are safe. Chiefs, Indians are safe. You know, there are some universities that are dealing with the actual use of like tribal names, but you know, that's like a whole different discussion.
Seminoles and all that stuff. Yeah.
Right.
All right. So, Shawn, the reason why I wanted to have you on today, man, is 20 years in the game is saying a lot, man. And I've noticed and been following your social media feed, and you've been sharing memories over the last week. So talk to me, man, about what 20 years in this game, what does it mean to you? And how has that experience changed you over 2 decades, man, from all the things you've witnessed, all the things you've seen, how you've gotten into this space and you've actually kind of created your own path?
I mean, the thing that's changed the most, to be honest, has been the whole technical aspect, technology, and how, like, when I first got into the news game in 2000, the way that people, you know, digest content has changed dramatically. You know, you went from back in the day when I started, you know, you had local news were the kings of communicating, and you had your major daily newspaper that everybody read every day of the week, and then you got the big fat thick version on Sunday, and then radio still had some, you know, local radio still had a lot of sway back in 2000. You know, 2000 is still 8 years before early adapters jumped on social media.
Right. You
know, social media really didn't come relevant to where everybody was on it to about 2015. Yeah, you got your early adapters in 2008. It started to catch fire around 10, 11, and then everybody's parents were on by 2015. That's where we're, you know, my mom got Facebook in 2018, so I guess that's when there you go. Everybody has it. So from that standpoint, it's changed a lot. Another thing as a film critic is how people watch movies has completely changed. Friday night, date night was the big thing back when I first started. Like all the advertising, all the marketing, everybody's habits were there's a new movie on Friday. Everybody had to run out on Friday, Saturday, so the weekends were big. The big weekend box office numbers. That was big in the beginning. But this streaming has changed the game. The theatrical experience, let's be honest, was dying before the pandemic. You know, I kind of call it it's a case of the 3 C's. You know, cost, content, and comfortability. You know, it's expensive to go to a movie theater, so that cost factor. You can rock Netflix for $10 a month and have access to like God knows how many titles, or Disney Plus, or any of these platforms, and just have like titles, and you can watch when you want to watch, how you want to watch multiple times, pause, rewind, like that sort of thing, invite friends over, cook your own food, that sort of thing. Man, the cost factor was already problematic. Content, you know, if we're going to speak and be truthful, man, these studios aren't doing the theater exhibitors any favors because the content that they're releasing, I mean, really? I'll be truthful. 95% of most movies I screen, if I had to pay for them, I'd be mad. Like, they're releasing some garbage. Like, a lot of this stuff doesn't deserve a theatrical release. Like, you know, a couple of recent movies, they won because of the pandemic, because you didn't need to see The King of Staten Island in a movie theater. You didn't need to see Lovebirds in the movie theater. You didn't need to see The High Note in the movie theater. Are you kidding me? Those were just fine streaming. Like, no, seriously, that's why the theatrical experience is in trouble. And I think in the future it's going to only be reserved for like big ticket items like, you know, Avengers Endgame, you know, Star Wars movies, James Bond movies, but everything else is perfectly fine to be streamed. And then the third C is comfortability. You know, people are getting sick of it. You know, you're sitting next to somebody always on their phone. You know, people don't understand the definition of a babysitter. People kicking the back of your seat, you know, people jumping up and down, people talking, and in this case now, people coughing. You guys been to movies, you've been to film festivals. Where don't hear more, where else do you hear more coughing than in a movie theater? It's people coughing and hacking throughout the 2-hour period of the film. So you got cost, content, and comfortability, and that all adds up to the theatrical experience is in trouble. So that's another big change. Now, the big thing that a lot of people have been talking about, because I've read article after article, you know, where a lot of people are talking to and interviewing Black people about surviving corporate America. I mean, you know, I have to be thankful. I mean, Fox 4 has provided me a platform. I mean, that I've had full support for them. That's how I've been able to, you know, that's how I've been able to last so long. And like when I go speak at schools and talk to students, I tell people like survival is all based on staying in your lane. You know, I've stayed in my lane. When you get the window of opportunity, you got to deliver. You got to stay in your lane. You got to deliver. You got to be consistent. You got to be top notch, and you got to bring something to the table that they value. You know, which in my case is, you know, I've been able to build credibility, been able to build an audience, and been able to deliver content that, you know, quite frankly, no one else in our marketplace has access to. That all helps, you know. But you have to stay in your lane. You know, I know for a lot of people it's fashionable to, you know, be the bull in the China store or the, you know, the Black militant or the, you know, it doesn't work like that. So, you know, you stay in your lane, you succeed. And I will say, you know, when I first started, you know, and you guys can attest to that, there wasn't a lot of Black film critics. There wasn't a lot of people with Black voices talking about film. And I think social media has increased that because now more than ever, you have people who can kind of like create their own space on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, you know, wherever. So, you know, they're not a lot by any stretch of the imagination right now, but they're way more than there were back in 2000.
Well, you know, it's funny you were going to say that because that's what I was thinking. I remember when I first got in, and I heard you say earlier that, you know, huge newspapers and the network film critics were like the big thing. The big thing when I first got in was the fact that, you know, all of this stuff that exists now, that blogs and all this stuff, there were no blogs when I first started. And when you started, Shawn, there were no blogs.
No.
And, you know, you had to come from a credible organization to even get on the media press list in order to be admitted as a critic. So
that was the hard part.
Yeah.
Right. That was the hard part. Like from 2000 to 2010, you had to be hired by somebody. Like this whole advent that we have now of like you got a bunch of critics, like they just create their own thing and they're their own boss. But it didn't really work like that back in the day. Like you literally had to be hired by an outlet in order to really get entrenched into the industry. Or it wasn't like there wasn't a lot of self-starters because that just wasn't how this thing was built or designed, you know. You just couldn't be like, hey, I got my own, like, you know, whatever. No, it didn't work like that. It was tough. It was tough back then because there were no support mechanisms. You know, you know, number one, you didn't have any mentors or anybody that could guide you. Like, whose footsteps were you gonna follow? Like when I was growing up as a kid, all I knew was Siskel and Ebert and Gene Shalit and Leonard Maltin vaguely. Right. But, you know, whose footsteps were like? There was nobody. You couldn't pick up the phone and call somebody and be like, "Yo, show me the ropes." Like you couldn't model your career after somebody because you couldn't say I'm gonna do it just like this person. And you know, it was tough getting hired back then. I mean, how many major dailies hired black film critics back in the early 2000s?
Well, not a lot, man, and that's why it's funny. My start date predates yours, so I always tell Charles and the rest of a lot of the younger critics like the horror stories, man, of having to deal with publicists back in the day when it wasn't nice like it is now, when it was like super cutthroat, and they had no cut card, man, and you just had to deal with it because they were the only game in town if you wanted to be down and working in this industry.
Well, it's still not easy now because I mean, how many major outlets are hiring black people to be film critics? Like, Hollywood Reporter
hiring people at all anymore. So I mean, I think it's harder now than it was maybe before. I don't know because I wasn't there when you guys started, but it's tough now.
Yeah, it might be harder. I think it's harder now to get legit jobs. It's just easier to throw your voice out there. But in order to work for an actual like media outlet, no, that's super hard. Like I would agree. Man,
and you and I, and if you're just tuning in, we got Shawn Edwards, man, from Fox 4 in Kansas City, who's celebrating 20 years. So we're talking about the downside of the game, Shawn. What have been some of the highlights, man, that you've witnessed over 20 years? Things you've got an opportunity to do that to this day you go, damn, that was hot.
Well, no, I always give I give my station a lot of credit because I was always invited in to sit down and be a part of the planning process. And one of the cool things they really helped me do was launch my series of black film documentaries on the history of black film, which predates all this stuff you see on Netflix now. Like we were doing stuff like that back in 2007, 2008, 9, and 10. So that's the thing I'm most proud of. I was able to use my platform, which is a mainstream news platform, to like provide some insight and perspective on the black experience because I just happen to be a film critic that's black, but everything that I talk about isn't black. But on some occasions, you do want to lend that perspective so that you can educate people, and teach people. And so they were very instrumental in helping me, launch that. And then we also in Kansas City started the Kansas City Urban Film Festival, so we were able to help young black filmmakers, in the area, show their work, and get an audience and build some credibility. So I've been really happy with that. And I kind of same thing with being a board member of the Critics' Choice Association. I was able to launch the Celebration of Black Film event. We had given it a little test drive back in 2014, and we revamped it in 2019. Going to do it again in 2020, depending on the COVID situation. So I've always been a firm believer if you get an opportunity, you got to kind of use your platform to pay it forward. So I've been real happy about that. Just being able to like do some different things, educate some people, and just provide a different perspective. But I've always been motivated by other entities that sort of do it wrong because I hate the American Film Institute. I wish they burned that organization down to the ground. I mean, it's one of the, if we keep it real, it's one of the most slanted, anti-black organizations there is when it comes to film. I mean, they put out all these lists and it's a really narrow perspective of how they think about, cinema and film and its impact on culture.
No, it's not slanted to them. It's slanted because they see film the way film has always been given to us. No, I got you. It's very slanted.
It's not expansive. It's not expansive at all, man. They put together these 100 greatest film lists, and it's like, bruh, greatest movie quotes. I'm like, nah, that's not that. If you go hang out with me at the barbershop, y'all missing about 25 quotes. That's why I did what I did. You gotta have some balance, man. But I'm always fueled by that. I mean, that's why I started the African American Film Critics Association, because I quit the Kansas City Film Critics Circle. They had like 36 members. I'm the only black. But, I'm one of the most high-profile film critics in Kansas City, but, your voice doesn't matter when you're in that group, man. I couldn't take it. I'm like, y'all can have this. It's just because it really, you can really see it when it comes down to voting at the end of the year when you're trying to, like, say, hey, Tupac's really good actor. Like, yeah, no, New Jack City is a classic. You just got to talk to some different people. You know, I get tired. You get that fanboy narrative is it's deep, it's rough, it's tough. And everything's the same, and you can't throw out some different opinions, man. So I was like, yeah, y'all can hide that. I didn't miss it one bit. Especially since it wasn't paying.
All right, let me just jump in and say a couple of things about Shawn, right? One, you made the statement that, I just happen to be black, but I'm a film critic. Charles, how many times have you heard me say that one?
Every week.
I'm just saying, man, because people look at us look at you on the surface and think, oh, you're a black guy. You must be an expert in black film. I'm like, no, I watch all films. I just happen to be a black guy. So that's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, what I will say about Shawn, I don't know if I've ever told you this publicly. I remember you and I had a conversation, several years ago, when you were the director of the Kansas City Jewish Film Festival. Remember that?
Yeah.
I remember at the time going, damn, that's odd. But guess what it gave? What it did to me is it gave me the possibility that I could be the director of a festival, which I now am here in Columbia, Maryland. So thank you for motivating me.
No.
And I watch you. You and I talked about this. I watch the stuff you're doing, and I think that you're on an amazing track. And I'm so glad I had an opportunity to build a relationship with you, because one of the earliest memories I had was reading this quote horror list I used to tease you about. Somebody asked you was the number one quote horror one year. I was like, who is this Shawn Edwards guy? And when I got a chance to know you, you are 180 degrees different from how the mainstream media will portray you. So I will just...
Well, they didn't really... But here was the problem. They didn't really... See, the problem with that, I remember that too. That was a few years ago. They didn't really portray me. Number one, the people who did that had no idea how the industry works. Because we don't create the ads. So they were making the beef with the critics. You can't make the beef with the critics. Like, the movie studios were spending millions of dollars on those ads. They were putting them. That was at the time when they would put them in the major dailies.
Right.
They were putting them on TV. That's when they used to buy crazy amounts of TV ads and radio ads. But no, they got it wrong. I mean, like, if you got a beef, you got to have the beef with the studio. I mean, opinions are opinions. You can say whatever. I mean, if I think Baby Boy's dope, I think Baby Boy's dope. And I still think Baby Boy's dope. You can't, why are you mad at me because I think Baby Boy's dope? And Sony was like, oh, okay.
Well, Shawn, I'll say this much. If Baby Boy is dope, the year it got nominated for 10 Black Reel Awards and didn't win one, it needed you as a person.
Nah, it's just Baby Boy still one of those movies. Baby Boy is one of those movies that's misunderstood. I mean, every now and then there's a movie that comes across where even the target audience has a tough time grasping that movie. I mean, Precious is the same thing because it is too real. But those stories exist. But Precious won 3 Oscars.
Man, okay, we can have a conversation about what an Oscar means, man. So come on, man.
Well, it means a lot, man. It means things fell the right way. It means it connected with a certain percentage of an audience, then that audience that mattered. I mean, winning 3 Oscars. I mean, how many movies about the Black experience have won more than 3 Oscars?
The Help won an Oscar.
Man, but 3 Oscars is 3 Oscars. I mean, no, but. Was Jeffrey Fletcher's script not really well done? No, that was a really.
That is a. I mean, let's keep it real, man.
Monique's performance was good, but what's your beef?
Precious is the reality of the film. It was a hard film to watch.
Right.
Yeah. What's your beef? Man, I haven't seen Precious since I saw Precious.
It deserved what it got. The 3 Oscars. I think it deserved every bit